Welcome to the Heartwork Podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sarah.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in. All right, everyone. We are so excited because today we're just going to get a little nitty gritty into what a member journey can look like, whether you're in a chiropractic office or in any type of other leadership business. There typically is a journey that you're going to take your customers on that are really hopefully going to allow them to be able to see like lifetime desire to be in your place of business. And at least especially for us, for chiropractors, we really want the ideal individual to be with you for ever, right? Or years and years and years, to where they're not just getting out of their pain, discomfort. They're coming to you to just get out of that initial thing, but they now are really allowing transformation to happen within regards to wellness, that maintenance perspective or lifestyle type care. And we've actually been having a lot of people ask us, like, what are your processes around that, along with some of like how you communicate that ahead of time. And so we just figured we'd just do a quick little pop on about that. And I recently have had a ton of people ask me of like, well, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And what's your whole process and journey? And creating that patient journey is incredibly important so that they know that they're seen, they're valuable. It also knowing when people may be falling off so that you can catch them before they do. And also making sure that, again, you're guiding them to where you essentially want them to be going at the same time. I want to just kind of give like an overarching thing, and then we can talk some nitty gritty a little bit, because it all starts literally from the very beginning. If you have to already be communicating, like for us, wellness care or lifestyle type care, from the moment somebody sees you in your website, from the moment somebody sees you on your brand, from the moment that they first call your office, it's conversations that are already starting to be stimulated. You don't have to tell everybody that they're immediately going to go to one time a week or twice a month, but you can already be starting to stimulate and plant the seeds for that wellness care. And so that's really, really important. If you don't have some of that already, I would definitely encourage you to start thinking about that and how you can add that at the same time. And then, so I'm just going to list through the places that we truly talk about it. So you'll just kind of hear, because we have systems around every aspect of this. So we have the initial phone call. We have the confirmation calls prior to them coming in. We obviously have text reminders at the same time as well. When they come into the office, they obviously have paperwork that they're filling out. They have a tour that they're going on that is describing and showing them our office and showing them all the different dynamics of patients that we see, different testimonials that are on the wall. When they go through testimonials, they're talking about a lot of these people are under wellness care, that you're going to see a lot of moms and babies and families, and this is why we do what we do. And so you're already starting to communicate a lot of that even on the tour. And then you get into, at least for us, we do a 2-day process. Some people I know just do a whole 1-day process for onboarding a client into your place of business. We do 2 just for the sake of a higher volume space. We don't have the capacity to turn it around. So just depending on how you're doing that, we do a day 1 education, including a set of history, consult, scans, x-rays. So in that journey at the same time, yes, we're specifically honing in on what they came in as a complaint or what they're wanting to navigate through their health. But we're also setting up realistic goals for them to not only hit by their first assessment, and also at the same time, looking forward of like, okay, we have those initial goals, but now what would you in the long run want to be able to see? And so we're really trying to also get them to the point where they're starting to think outside of just getting out of pain, because that's what most people always come into, at least specifically chiropractors. They just want to get out of pain. And then we do an orientation or a doctor's report. I actually did one this past week and literally cried at the end of it because it was just emotional to like invite people into what you get to like do. It's such a freaking honor at the end of the day. I got emotional with it and it was so sweet. And I was also talking to them like, this is what this care plan is going to look like. And literally most of our people are on wellness care. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So I celebrated that with them and just was like, you know what? Like literally we got to celebrate people being with us for 8 years, 10 years. Most of those individuals are one time a week. It's like I'm already planting seeds, right? It's like getting the opportunity for you to plant seeds along the way so that your people are going to convert from that initial stage to lifestyle type care all the way. And then once they fully onboard, I think people have really good onboarding processes. And if you don't, obviously it'd be something to really look at and clean up. But once you onboard, it really is a place to where now you get to be the guide. A lot of times people, they have this idea of, okay, I want to just get out of pain, but it really is a process, right? And it really is a journey versus it be, we're just going to do one adjustment and it's all done and then they're better, which that's not how we build our care. And so we're building along the way and we're speaking small table talk. We call them table talk moments to where we're speaking life, education, and reinforcement for them along their journey. And so it's really, really important. And we specifically with our EHR, we have prompts that will prompt us to remind us of certain talking points along the way. And that's for us, what's really important for the sake of we have multiple doctors in our office. Like I may not see somebody for 2 months. I may see them 5 visits in a row, like depending on how you navigate it. And we, at least for us, don't share or don't have preference-based adjusting. So everybody sees every doctor. And so there needs to be clear communication processes in order so that everybody feels really confident. Like if they come in, see a person after they hadn't seen in a little while. What are they talking to them about? What are their struggles? What are they navigating? What are their celebrations? Did they just travel to Italy? Like all these types of things. And so that table talk process is really important. And so it'll also help you streamline your brain and get yourself out of your brain, having to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to talk to this human about? And then we specifically are very, very, we have specific points along their care journey where we are talking to them about reinforcement of re-exams or progress reassessments to where we're saying, okay, this is exactly where I want you to be. And also this is what I'm going to expect moving forward. And then you get to the point where then you're saying, okay, once we get to this point, I'm actually going to be showing you a wellness plan or you're going to be joining our wellness club. That's actually going to decrease your visits in frequency and also a financial obligation or investment at that time. And so you also just you're like literally every single thing that you're doing is foreshadowing where you want them to go at the same time and reinforcing the journey that they are on and celebrating where they're at. So that's kind of this like whole overarching thing for us, like getting people to transition to wellness. We have an 85 to 90% wellness sign-on rate. And so we really I believe, have done a very good job. So it's just a process of making sure that you're really communicating that along the way.
Table talk is my favorite thing. So I did want to ask a question because I know we use the same EHRs and I don't know if everyone's EHR has that same capability, but most EHRs have places where you can put in notes. So you could always have like a team member kind of keep track of like visits where people are at and add in a little note. But do yours pop up at certain visit numbers or can they be in also by appointment? So if someone's coded as a reeval appointment that day, like it will pop up a specific reeval prompt, or how does that work?
So at least in our EHR, there's a section where it's like a utility section that you can add certain table talk points for certain visit numbers. And so we have them listed and I have like 84 of them in our whole platform. So we specifically put them in it's literally on every single file on the back end. So sometimes you do have to get a little creative with what's popping up based on where that person is in the journey. But there are very, very, very specific ones around because we always do a progress re-exam right at 12 visits. So at prompt at 10 visits, it's literally prompting us to start talking about that scan with them.
Cool.
And then at visit 13, we're getting typically prompt to say reinforce scans and where they're going. So we're literally talking about them ahead of time. We're reinforcing them afterwards. And then because most common for us is like a 36 visit plan, for example. So it's over the course of 4 months. So that the first initial part is really important. About visit 18-20, within that plan, we typically are really also reinforcing wellness care and like where they are in their plan because people typically are starting to feel a lot better at this point and also potentially getting curious about, well, if I feel better, I don't want to keep coming. or maybe schedule changes. And, just like life can kind of happen once they've been with you for about 2 months. So we're starting to really communicate at that point. And then we do another, we call it a health review, but it's another progress reassessment right before they would finish their plan. And we have, depending on the amount of care plan, the amount of visits that we built for somebody, that's all the reassessments are going to vary. But we again have these put in as just pop-ups at certain points so that before they would end their care, we're already talking about, it's like a prompt to talk about that wellness care and what to expect. And so we are, all of us, especially as doctors, are all communicating that, hey, this is what I would expect. And also, I really foresee that you're ready to go down to 1 time a week, for instance, let's say. And then I'm also prepping them prior to us going into that scan. Like, how would you feel about going down to 1 time a week? Do you feel that your nervous system is supported with that? Do you feel excited about that? Because I also want to get a gauge of like where they are, what's their like thoughts and opinions? Do they feel like they're seeing the change? And also, are they potentially really weary when it comes to financials or getting here? So if their scans are appropriate and have the support, maybe they can go down to twice a month and they can have a significant change there. But I want to make sure, and I always reinforce, like, we're going to do this based on what your scans look like, because obviously we want to still get you the care that you want to be able to still see in the results that you want to see. However, at the same time, let's base it off of scans. But I do think based on what I'm seeing, I think you're ready to go down to 1 time a week. Most of our people, when they go from restorative, they typically all go down to 1 time a week. Into a wellness plan at that point. And then we're really just communicating if we have any feedback from them that, hey, I am having some financial stress or fatigue getting here, then we can talk about going shorter. Because obviously at the end of the day, I do want them to sustain and maintain themselves in a plan, regardless if it is going to twice a month. I don't like to go to twice a month as quick after the first one, because typically you will see a lot of people regress and go a little bit more backwards. So then they get frustrated and then they're like, what the heck am I paying for this? Because I'm not seeing the change.
Right, because you're seeing people more frequently in the beginning and tailoring that down to maybe twice a week as then they get ready to transition. And I love the conversation around table talk, because it really is so much easier to start to prompt and preempt the conversation and the questions versus them let an individual start to make decisions or their own assumptions in their mind. And then you have to almost like work your way back out that from the opposite end. And that's where things can feel more icky. They can feel more salesy. You can feel like, oh my gosh, now I have to convince them of something. And I should have been talking about this earlier. So I always love when you get to frame the conversation. And it's always more impressive too for a client when you are walking in authority and not assumption, but prediction. And it doesn't have to be something like, I guarantee, or I promise this is where you're going to be, or this is what it's going to feel like. But you can say, this is where most people experience X. And that gives you some room where if there's fluctuation, you get to explain why. Were there, is there transitions? Is there growth spurts in kids? Like, what are the reasons that can build into that? But sometimes too, my last tip before we close out this quick and short little practical episode for you is to remind you that table talk doesn't always have to also be about the person in front of you and what their wellness is, but you can share story of other people. And so even if I actually love to share stories of examples of flare-ups. So like we've had a kiddo in our office that has just been experiencing a little bit more sensory stuff this week. And so I get to share testimony of other weeks and times where we've had a full moon, we've had daylight savings time, the weather is getting significantly colder in my environment where we're at. And those are times of transition, and we could be growth spurting. And we just started in our rhythm for school for 2 months. So we're getting more comfortable with our environment and our routines, and maybe fall sports have ended and we're transitioning into a new sport with a new team. And so you get to share about those things and how we can predict that. And then if their kiddo comes back and they're still sensory that week or they're not, then you can again say, yep, this is exactly what we see. We're so early in your initial plan, but imagine next year we have examples of our kids that have now been under care with us for 2-3 years, and they just got done with student teacher conferences, and they've had an incredible start to the year that's so different from prior years. And that's all because of them continuing to get regularly adjusted or boost up their recommendations when needed. And so again, it's like, you get to frame those conversations and share. It doesn't always have to be about that patient, but again, that real proof, that social proof that this is normal or this can happen in rhythms of other people. Especially, it's always easy to share when things are going super, super well and everyone's doing really, really good. And it's like they do end up having that linear health journey, and it's just like they're singing Kumbaya in the cornfields and it's great. But there can be really, really sticky cases and just life that happens too. So being able to not shy away from those conversations or just run through the adjustment quick and be like, bye, see you next time, because you don't want to talk about the hard stuff. Like those are the times that can be the most impactful and can actually set the seeds for trust and accountability and credibility that makes someone want to stick in your practice, even if they don't have those 100% gains all in the first few months of experience.
Yeah. I think it's important to understand that table talk is like a building block. So it's like you're building on the last one. And also you don't have to convince in the first visit or the first couple of visits that they're going to have all the things about chiropractic told to them, sold to them in the first couple of things. You're literally having the opportunity to be able to build all these seeds along the way. And so don't overcomplicate it at the same time. And like we're also like, for us, it was just Halloween right around here. So it's just like, goodness gracious, like everything was so fun and everybody had costumes on and we're celebrating. So it's like, it's easy to like celebrate life with people too. Right. So like get out of your own way too, to just have to be all the chiropractic. There are times to just celebrate the human that is in front of you. And, still reinforcing the chiropractic journey. Cause I know I can sometimes also get way more on the relational side and get out of the education side. So that is also a beautiful just reminder. One last thing that you mentioned, it triggered me. If you have constant questions or objections that pop up, that's an opportunity for you to build table talk or systems around that to make sure you're hitting those objections or again, like questions that pop up all the time. That should be a trigger to you. So in a practice, like we used to do this when we first started, I would literally write them. I would write a note on my phone or I would get a sticky note and I would write it down. Where were they starting to talk to me about these specific things? Where were they in their care? When was it popping up? What was the objection? And then when could I add it in ahead of time so that they weren't asking me these questions? Because it's my job to help lead them. And that could just also be a practice of like, okay, is it at visit 10 that people are starting to ask me like, when am I going to get better? It's like, okay, then at visit 5, you need to be starting to talk about, hey, you're probably going to start feeling that, man, this is maybe taking longer than you may have expected. However, just trust the process. This does take time. Remind you of like what we saw either on your scans, your x-rays, or whatever your initial intake was. We got work to be able to do, but you're doing so great, right? So like, it's just a reinforcement to try to help them get to where they're at without them already getting in their brain of like, oh crap, well, I'm not seeing change. Do I need to come here still? So reinforcing that ahead of time, which is such a beautiful gift. So thank you for joining us on another episode of the Heartwork Podcast. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to lead with heart in your business and life.
If you enjoyed this, subscribe so you never miss a release, rate our show, leave us a review, get on our VIP email list, and join our exclusive Facebook group, The Heartwork Life, to plug into our community and learn from us and other heart-led entrepreneurs on a weekly basis.
We look forward to chatting with you next time.
Bye!